So speaking about people who are wounded,
Mm.
the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, OG Nananobi. I was like, please, not OG.
The Dallas Mavericks have gotten the full AD experience in like half a basketball game. They've gotten it all. They got the dominating performance, cleaning the glass, scoring with ease, swatting shots, abdominal injury out indefinitely.
I'm here now.
I'm here on the bench with an abdominal injury for an indefinite period of time.
That was so thrilling when he went off and he was just like, motherfuckers, I have arrived. Fear not, I am Anthony Davis. And then he went down. I mean, the whole time we were thinking the same thing, right? We were just like, is he coming back too early? Because we heard after the All-Star break, do you just get better from a groin injury in halftime? And he did not get better, right? And I don't know. I'm talking over you. Go ahead.
Oh no, we're just having a conversation here, Andrew.
Okay.
I was excited for him because I don't like the trade. I think it's foolish. But I did think that Anthony Davis was getting accused of being chopped liver a little bit in this conversation. Like, this guy is in the next tier. You know, you got Luka top 5, Anthony Davis like 7 to 10, whatever. He is an amazing, amazing player who has kind of spent the last couple of years in the contours of LeBron James and Clutch and what was been happening in Los Angeles when he was viewed as, you know, the pillar of a franchise, and that this was the guy who was going to carry your team to the promised land. I don't think he can necessarily do that, but the reality is that as soon as he got close to another good player, boom, they won a title. And it was because Anthony Davis played spectacularly. So anyway, main point here being, love seeing Anthony Davis show up and be one of the best players on the planet. But then again, this is the downside with Anthony Davis. And I hate people when they mock players for getting hurt. I think it's really lame. But it's still the problem with Anthony Davis. Like, that's
and you'll
a legit
take that
issue.
problem. He's a max player currently. You'll accept that problem. And he had a nice season last year. I believe he played over 70 games. Going into the Dallas Mavericks run of his season, I think he was a top 5. We talked about this last week. He was a top 5 statistical MVP. Narratively, not even close. But just raw numbers wise, he has been delivering as Anthony Davis would. That team's still relevant, but like, I hate to talk about the reaction, but you know, Lakers fans should pace themselves a little bit because their player is not known for his health, and he may take the Lakers to like as high as the conference finals and like not look right. We saw it in the finals last year. The intrigue around Luka Doncic grows exponentially, especially with all of the kind of people coming out of the woodwork in Dallas talking about why they dealt him. Still waiting for Michael Finley to make an appearance. Maybe he's turned down all phone calls, but famously took the beer out of his hands. I'm like, someone talk to Finley. He's a very famous athlete, and he himself has had a wonderful career with the Mavericks. What was that about? And all Finley would have to say is like, oh, you know, like, we're trying to be professional here, and there's still work to be done. You know, we'll have a beer when we win the championship. But there is innuendo and there are speculative thoughts, and there's a lot of smoke around why the Dallas Mavericks would give up on a 25-year-old superstar who's lovable and popular, as we're seeing. Death threats to Nico Harrison, which is crazy, but this stuff is important to people. That's why we do a podcast about it. Like, this stuff matters to people.
I don't want to be the guy who says, don't worry about death threats.
Oh, you should worry.
Like, no, I'm saying there's a lot of guns in Texas. There's a lot of crazy people. Like, it's possible. I also think, like, online culture and social media and Twitter has just made it too easy to get death threats off. You used to have to actually go and like find out where someone worked or their home, and you have to write it out. Or even do the little collage type of thing where you're cutting out the letters so they can't trace your handwriting.
You got to
If you
stuff a
got
pillow so you're like sleeping in bed. So when your mom checks on you in the basement, they're like,
yeah,
get a job. Oh, you're sleeping. I'll come back later. Meanwhile, you're sitting at someone's house.
I feel like if you went through the trouble to compose a death threat and get it into the right people's hands and camouflage it so they couldn't figure out where it came from, preserve your anonymity, like, oh man, this person might kill you. That's dangerous. Now it's like someone can just jump on X and be like, Nico, if I see you, your ass is grass. Like, dude, he's getting death threats. They said his ass is grass. That could mean anything. His ass literally could be grass.
Two of my friends have experienced that, what Nico Harrison's going through right now. Maybe like 10 years ago, in a hot moment. And their lives have not been the same since. They cannot go out in public and feel good. They've moved 3 or 4 times. They can't take jobs where they're like facing anybody as an interaction, whether that be email or anything. Some of them moved back with their parents, like horrible depression. Yo, shout out to Nico Harrison, man. He made a basketball decision.
Be crazy if he has to move in back with his parents as a result of this.
I mean, if you are experiencing that in a city where you have no ties to, you can pick up and leave LA, New York if you want to. Just be like, my brain is not on planet Earth. I need to like go where it is on planet Earth.
We'll also say that an NBA general manager has so much more visibility and recognizability at this stage. Everyone in New York was mad at Scott Bin Laden, which is still one of the greatest basketball adjacent nicknames in the history of the sport.
Fire Laden was a famous internet website.
But I don't know that I would recognize him.
Oh, I would. Come on.
No, I'm saying you might, but you were, I remember like what he looked like, but not enough that if he walked by me on the street, I don't think I would say, oh, that's Scott Layden.
Remember when I walked into ABC Carpet and I was like, wow, there's a disturbance in the force. And I looked around and there he was, Mr. Collar Man himself, Brian Colangelo.
This is true. You did. And remember you texting me, you're like, I'm at ABC Carpet and I'm going to introduce myself and say hello.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it gets tricky because we joke about meat shields and they're real and these people and their happiness. And this is the Don Draper meme, right? This is what the money's for. But they're all underpaid, not front office people. I'm not going to go that far. But Nico Harrison knew the risks of this. I don't think he thought he was like, I'm getting a good deal. People are going to be happy with AD. He famously muffed the Steph Curry presentation at Nike. They're guessing that cost that company $13 billion, perhaps, by calling him, I believe, Seth. He called him Seth instead of Steph, right?
The story, and I have no idea the veracity of that, but the story was that he called him Seth and then showed him the deck for KD.
Oh, KD, that's right.
And it was like that was the pitch deck that he showed him.
Not great, right? But whatever. Like Steph Curry wasn't. I don't know. I could see that mistake happening.
Also, maybe Nike could have offered him more money. I don't know. I just mean there's ways to make up for, say, a blunder.
Mm-hmm. In true meat shield fashion, be like, he does not represent the company. Let us do this right by you. Nico Harrison is no longer a part of this transaction. But we had the managing operator, I guess the president of the team, a Nepo baby that married into the Edelman family, being like, we want a player who works hard. We want a dog, sort of like Shaq and Michael Jordan. And everyone's like,
yeah. So this is Patrick Dumont. Is who you're talking about. So he's the owner of the Mavs, or at least one of them, as you said, who got pulled into this franchise by family connections. And he really criticized Luka Doncic and his habits and his approach. And he said, if you look at the greats in this league, Jordan, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, they worked hard every day with one focus, winning. And it doesn't work if you don't have that. So beyond the fact that this is a guy who you would not necessarily accuse of earning his fortune, but I don't know, I got to say, like us white dudes been doing this for a long time, man. You know, you got a bunch of money in your account that you got from, you know, your great grandfather who started a liquor company. And you're like, man, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's all about hard work, the American dream. I don't think people understand how little a lot of very wealthy people work,
especially in the Super Bowl stadium or an NBA arena, and whatever. Like, I believe in passing down wealth. I think that is something that's okay. I think it should be taxed, but I think it's okay. The hubris surrounding it is a whole different story. And
yeah, that's my main objection. Like I am down for the taxes. I understand the arguments for like, nah, that shit just goes back to the state. Like
no, fuck the state.
I'm saying, yeah. But I'm saying there are places where it's like, if you die, like,
yep,
the state jumps in because we have Sharia law here, so that's what we're doing. Yeah, like that's the rule of the place. But
no doggy bag.
Yeah, it's mostly the irritation of people who have done the least to earn their fortune are really about lecturing people on the merits of elbow grease.
Yeah, and like, it sounds easy to say the players are underpaid and they should always get the benefit of the doubt in a dispute with management. But it's kind of true. If you look at the profits these owners are making in resale, the profits the owners are making on a daily, like all the leases of these arenas, there's no amount of money that it should, if it reflected the value of what the players provide the product. Ben Simmons is woefully underpaid as an all NBA player who's hurt. But those examples are interesting. Larry Bird got hurt putting gravel on his mom's driveway. That's not getting shots up in the gym. Kobe Bryant tried really hard to be a rapper. That's not getting shots up in the gym. Shaquille O'Neal, famously lazy player, one of the GOATs. I think underrated. That's a weird example.
But very strange example. I mean, if there's one thing about Shaquille O'Neal, it was that he wasn't in great shape and famously, basically played his way into being conditioned over the course of the year. And that was his approach. He's like, I'm going to show up tubby as fuck. And by the end of the season, I'll have run enough miles, because back then, they were playing a lot of minutes because they're real men, not like today's, weaklings who only play 34 minutes a game. They were playing 42
on the Knicks. Yeah.
But, that was Shaquille O'Neal's brand, was like not working hard.
Yeah, and doing movies and promotions and trying to be a celebrity.
Which is funny because Luka doesn't do any of that stuff. Like this last year, right? He played 92 games out of the team's 104 combined regular season and postseason. Like over 90%. Yeah, we know he had injuries and he dragged them with one leg to the finals, but dude, he played 92 games for the Mavs last year and then went and played overseas. We're claiming this guy isn't hooping enough? Like he's not playing enough basketball? I disagree.
I mean, this guy giving this quote, he's a casual, man, because even Michael Jordan is a weird one to mention. Obviously, Jordan originalists eat that up, but Michael Jordan famously spent time at a poker table every now and then. Golf was his jam. He took a season off to play baseball. Like, Jordan is certainly a top 10 player of all time. Undeniable. Great businessman. Not a businessman, a businessman. But like
a businessman.
But he's also a weird example, especially since you have a statue of a man who kind of fits what you're talking about right in front of your building, which is Dirk Nowitzki.
I thought that was strange. But maybe it was because one, this guy doesn't really care about the Mavericks because he's just part of the
He's
organization. So he's not even thinking in like the lingua franca of the Maverick diehard. Because if you talk to,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? If you talk to
Yeah.
Mark Cuban, Dirk is going to come like into his mind immediately because he's lived and breathed Mavs. This guy's like, yeah, oh, right.
Michael
Orlando
Jordan.
Blackman? Who is that
Yeah.
guy? Michael Finley? I think he's he's the guy who takes away people's beer.
Yeah. Yeah. I,
Like what's his even perception of like Mavs lore?
yeah, we can't let the wrong voices get into our heads. And this is delicious because I love piling on a billionaire like that. But like, he doesn't care. Like the trade is done, and the smoke since last we talked about the trade since last week. There's more rumblings from him and other people in the organization that like they didn't like his work ethic, quote unquote, and that could be code for many things. But the one that's out there is, he likes to party like every day is the Super Bowl. Enjoying his loaded nachos and his 7 beers, and he's just an American who enjoys the National Football League. Now,
He's just tailgating. He's just a tailgater.
He's tailgating. But you'll take that. And like, I don't want to miss the point, and I want to bring this up because we talked about this before the pod. Like, is Luka a well-rounded person or a lazy person?
Who can say? I mean, well, we can say obviously, but I mean, he's an odd example, right? Because he grew up being a basketball savant, and he was 11 years old, and he was brilliant. And his dad played, and Luka's 6'8", 6'9". He's huge. He's always been the best player on the court, and by all indications, he loves basketball. Like it's his shit. He's throwing up trick shots.
You don't
He's
get at this
out
level
there.
of not liking basketball.
Right. I'm saying outside of like just a 7-footer who was kind of ushered into playing basketball because everyone realized that this guy could be a meal ticket. Oh, you can be generational wealth. You're 6'9" at 14 years old. So we're going to Larry Sanders you. We're going to get you into this sport because like you just have to. You are
Sanders
a golden.
Doesn't get to Luka's level, like alpha on a finals team.
Oh, I agree. I'm saying you could maybe make an argument that Luka, as like a child prodigy, didn't have quite the same autonomy as other athletes. He's also big. He's in a basketball family, except that's not what Luka gives off. I'm not saying he's happy or isn't drinking too much or whatever the hell he's doing, but he doesn't emit the vibes of someone who is like pushed into basketball against his will. He seems to really like basketball. Like he loves that shit.
I agree with you, but you're kind of ducking the question. That's all true. But the debate I'm interested in having is someone who is a bona fide genius at one thing, does it help them for taking a year off before college, for understanding a different world and bringing that world into another world? Like, if someone was so good at basketball, would being an appreciator of fine literature or Renaissance paintings help him in his journey as a player?
Well, this was definitely Phil Jackson's belief, where he would famously give books to players, and they were supposed to, teach life lessons.
Yeah.
And okay, like read this book, and this will change the way you approach the sport of basketball. Like, what's it about?
Yeah, my favorite. Yeah,
read a book, any book.
My favorite. Yeah, my favorite story is with Shaq Lakers. It's like, oh, we heard Phil Jackson gave you a Nietzsche book. Did you have a chance to read it? Did you have a chance to think about it? And he was like, no, but I know what he was telling me. And they're like, go on. And he's like, with great power comes great responsibility. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. True story, Shaq. The great philosopher Peter Parker. Or
just
is that Uncle Ben?
Just as Nietzsche always said.
Yeah. But anyway,
now I know that if I stare into the abyss, I become the monster.